And here's the commandment, Exodus 20. Look at this. The fourth commandment is remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Remember in Genesis 2, God declared the day of rest holy. It's the first thing that he declared holy was the day of rest, the seventh day. And remember in Exodus 16, he called it holy again. But here in Exodus 20, he instructs the Israelites to keep it holy. That he declared it holy, but now he instructed them, it's been declared holy, but he instructed them to now keep it holy. How are they to do that? Well, he explains in verse 9, he says, 6 days you shall labor and do all of your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. Okay? On it you shall not do any work. Neither you, nor your sons or your daughters, nor your male, female servants, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. Now, this is interesting, because this is how they keep it holy. They're to take a day of rest, set it aside the seventh day, which he introduced 4 chapters later, and there's to now, in order to observe this, to make it holy, to keep it holy, they were to observe it. But what I had never noticed before, I've read this again. This is the 10 Commandments. Come on, I've read this hundreds and hundreds of times. I've always, if I ever was introduced about the Sabbath, I always said in the Sabbath, about the Sabbath, I was like, well, the Sabbath is a day of rest and you're not supposed to do any work. And I would end it there. That's only part of the command. Okay. And come on, you thought the same thing, that like day of rest is just don't do any work. But watch. It says, on this day, you shall not do any work. But then it goes on. It doesn't end with that. That's not a period there. It says, neither you, nor your sons or daughters, nor your male, female servants, nor your animals, nor your foreigners residing in your towns. Do you notice this? That the Sabbath wasn't an individual observance. The Sabbath was intended to be communal. It was community. It was family. It was all foreigners included in an entire community. That this command was not just given to the individual Israelites, to an individual Jew. This command was given to the nation. The entire nation was to say, this is the seventh day, and to celebrate together. Now, I want you to get this, because this is another revelation that I was like, oh, okay, because I always thought that Sabbath was just honestly restrictive, painful, silence and isolation. Like, it's just like, not do anything, just kind of later, like it's all by yourself and like, just reflect. I always thought it was that. But listen, the Jews to this day don't observe it in isolation and silence, like seclusion and solitude. Like to this day, they don't celebrate that way. And because it was never given that way, that it was actually given as a community, and it was to be celebrated by the community. I read a quote from Ruth Haley Barton. She's a pastor, and she said this. She says, Sabbath is not the same thing as solitude and silence. By definition, solitude and silence are practices that we can enter into with God and God alone. Sabbath, by definition, is a practice we enter into with others in community. I was like, man, that was a major revelation to me. That Sabbath is not restrictive. It's not painful. It's not silence and isolation. It's a communal party. She goes on and she says this, although one may be able to incorporate solitude and silence into their Sabbath practice, and we certainly should if we can, generally speaking, Sabbath is meant to be discovered. I love that. Sabbath is meant to be discovered in community. It is not something individuals stumble around and try to figure out for themselves by themselves. Which is why I felt like the revelation, what God is messing with me on, when I got this revelation that Sabbath is about community, that's not meant to be discovered, I was like, by oneself, for oneself, I realized that while God's messing with me on this one, as a pastor who's, part of a community and leading in a community, I was like, this is something that we are to discover together.